officially welcome in our 1320 Kings insider, creator of the Kings Beat, and baseball fan, our man James Ham. James, as we shift gears here to the Sacramento Kings, we're just about 4 weeks away from the NBA draft. We'll discuss this all together because I'm curious your thoughts on this, James. You've made a lot of mock drafts, in your day. And I've noticed something over the last few weeks that I'm just curious to get your opinion on. I try to pay attention because the Kings are drafting, later than we're used to. So I really kind of look at 20 through 26 through these different drafts, through different publications, different writers to see who they have slotted in those areas and to see how similar those 6 or 7 picks are with each other. Like, is it the same group of players all kind of right there in that area? And one thing I noticed, Hammer, is like this week, and I get we're 4 weeks away from the draft. We're like 5 different drafts that had Chris Murray at 24. And it's like, okay, are you telling me he's the consensus number 24 pick in this draft? Or is this just kind of a lazy, hey, we're 4 weeks away, let's make a little cute story? Because all of them include a line something similar to, he'll probably go higher. But for this version of the draft, I'm going to put him in at 24. Like, is this... James, explain the mock draft process to me so I don't throw my computer the next time I see Chris Murray at 24. By the way, this has nothing to do with Chris Murray. It just has to do with, okay, we're at the 24th pick of the draft, and everyone thinks Chris Murray is coming to Sacramento, huh? Okay.
Yeah, I really do think that there's a huge void left right now in the draft world because there aren't nearly the quality of people that are writing mock drafts that there used to be, and that
some of them are working in front offices now.
Well, that's the deal. Like, yeah. I mean, when you lose Draft Express as like the primary when they sold to ESPN, that was a big hit. But then when ESPN absorbed, Jonathan Givony and Mike Schmitz, they at least had those guys on board, right? But then Mike Schmitz left and became the assistant general manager for the Portland Trailblazers. Mike is the guy. He is the guy. He has been for like 5 or 6 years in the draft world. He's the guy who's at every one of these Nike AAU camps. He's the one that travels the world to scout prospects everywhere. He's really, really good at what he does. And to lose him in that space was a huge, huge loss for basketball fans. And then the next guy on the list after really Mike Schmitz, because I don't even really consider Jonathan Givony as part of that. It's just, he's the guy who financed and built Draft Express. But after that, he really relied on the talent of guys like Mike, who's the one who did the original videos. Like, if you remember, Draft Express was the best of the best of the best with their draft coverage videos. And all of that was Mike Schmitz. So the next step is Sam Vecenie from the Athletic, and he's tremendous. And then after that, there's a steep drop off. And so what we're doing here with mock drafts is exactly that. I mean, during the shutdown, right? So we hit the pandemic, the early parts of the pandemic before the Tyrese Halliburton draft. I want to say 11 mock drafts. Maybe it was more. Maybe it was like 21 mock drafts. Like during that time, and you got to come up with something every 2 to 4 weeks. Your boss wants it. They're the only thing driving any traffic to the site. I did something like 80 million page views during the lockdown in mock drafts, and a lot of that is, diving deeper and deeper and deeper into each one of these prospects, their videos, getting as much resources as you can on them. But that's not everyone. Not everybody has a scouting eye. Not everybody, like a lot of it's copycat. A lot of it's just guys looking at the other mock drafts and moving guys around off of those boards. Our friend Brett Huff, I think, does a tremendous job of doing what he calls a consensus board, where it has basically every single one of the major mock drafts he's pulling, and he puts them into a spreadsheet and like basically comes up with an equation to rate each of the prospects. and put him in like again, a consensus, like what everyone kind of is saying. So when it comes to Chris Murray and the Kings, I do think a lot of it's just lazy, just straight up. You know, Chris Murray's probably going to go number 16, 17, 18 in the draft. It's possible he falls to 24, but even if he does, I'm not even sure the Kings take him. And that, again, that's not a knock on Chris Murray. The fact is they already have Keegan, and Keegan and Chris, while they're different players, they're still identical twins. They still have the same exact body type. Neither one of them is a gigantic leaper. They're not super athletes. They're really, really smart, good, high quality players, but they're very similar. And the Kings need something different at that 24 spot. If they're going to stay there, they need a long, athletic leaper that's defensive minded, that, you know, really is more of a 3-and-D3 or a 3-and-D4 or a 3-4 combo. And I guess you could squint and like say, okay, maybe I can see Chris Murray as that player, but there are other options that I think fit the bill better. And so I do believe that it's kind of lazy. To get back to your original question, after a long segue there, but yeah, if that makes sense.
No, it does.
Yeah. How difficult is it to, do these mock drafts after probably the lottery? Like, it's already kind of tough enough in the back half of the lottery, but 24, I mean, there's so many different variables and different scenarios, guys that can be drafted, guys that could be traded, picks that be traded. I mean, that seems like a tough task. And to be honest with you, I say that to say, I could see somebody maybe being lazy with it, because all right, like, I don't really know what's going to happen after 15. Well, Chris Murray is there. The Kings kind of, all right, okay. Now, at least I have a story to tell at that point. Like, 24 is kind of tough.
Yeah, it's funny you bring up like even the top 15, and we just saw a report yesterday from Wasserman, I believe, that that Bilal Coulibaly has a promise in the top 14. So, I mean, that's a guy who realistically is slated in most mock drafts to go between like 25 and 35. Not all the way up there. And there's always like lottery busters. You have the Josh Primos of the world who jump up out of nowhere and slide into the lottery where no one expected. And they're like, there's countless players that are like that, right? That, guys like Noah Vonleh, who are around 19, 20, move all the way up to, the night before the draft. People say he could go to number 4, and then he falls like number 11 or 12. Like, there are all of these draft stories that happen. But this draft in particular, I'm just going to say, like, from 15 to like 40, it's so wide open. And it really does depend on like just what you're interested in, what as a team you value, what you have as needs. And I think that's when I'm doing mock drafts, and I have done so many mock drafts. I don't even know. But I'll tell you that, like, I try to do things like my own way. So I really look at team needs. So I scout all of their salary structure. I look at all of their minutes played from the years before, and I match like what is their weaknesses, what are their pluses, and then I try to find players that I think fit those when I'm doing mocks. So if I'm doing mocks, I break it down into like a player profile, what he looks like, what he can do as a player, and then what team needs are, and then how that player fits into those needs. And that's usually how I do it. And those things change, they change throughout. Like when you talk about the lottery comes out, like that's your mock draft should shake up substantially, because now you have the true sort of the draft placements in their true order. So now I know that, if I'm looking at even like go all the way up to the number 2 pick, Brandon Miller might make more sense than Scoot Henderson at number 2, because Charlotte has LaMelo Ball, and they might not need a true point guard. They might need someone different. They might need a small forward, so or a power forward, whatever you want to put Brandon Miller as. So like all of these things change throughout especially once the lottery comes out, and then it's fine tuning, especially down the last 2 weeks. you're hearing a ton of stuff. Like I'm always hearing a ton of stuff. They're like, I mentioned it to you guys before. Like I've heard like crazy things come out of the combines about specific players that you're just like, boy, that just makes you're scratching your head. Like, what in the world does that even mean? And then guys plummet, and then you know why. And it's really difficult because you're looking at these things from like a million miles away. And, you know, there are some guys, like, again, there's some really, really good mock draft guys that are calling every single, they're calling the prospects trainer at their school. So they have a list of not only, you know, the head coach at a specific college, but maybe a couple of assistants and then maybe a trainer. And they'll get a really good package. Some of them will go back to their high school coaches and they'll really dive into like what this kid was like in high school, how hard of a worker he was, whether he showed up to practice, whether he was a good teammate, all of these things. And they try to package them up. And then there's the other thing, like we talked about the other day with the guy that you love, Kenny. You know, there are players that they go to 4 different high schools or 5 different high schools, and then they go to prep school, and then they switch colleges 3 times. And it's like, if you've ever hired people and fired people, you know that when you get an employee that's had 4 jobs and it's, you know, like June, they've already had 4 jobs that year, that if you hire them, you're going to have them for like 2 weeks and then they're leaving. They're going somewhere else. So like, that's a problem. You want some sort of commitment level from your prospects. And that, because that comes in, like if someone's willing to give up on a college or a high school experience after a year, or someone's in their ear telling them to move from this college, this high school to this high school, or this college to this college, none of that's good. That means that they have bad outside people giving them bad advice. They have all kinds of needs that you might not be able to fit as a franchise. And players like that usually get to a certain point and then they're ready to go somewhere else because they don't want to do the work or they don't want to listen to you anymore. And they're so used to just giving up on the process and going somewhere else. So like, it's pretty heavy. And these are multi-million-dollar decisions. I mean, that decision at number 2 is probably, it could mean $100 to $200 million in franchise valuation 3 years from now. If one of them hits and one of them doesn't, that's huge.
Yeah. Have you ever, in your conversations with Monte McNair, kind of dove into what his process is at this time of year? Or
yeah,
Wes?
yeah. Like between the two of them, between the conversations that I have, a lot of like what I get from them is they prefer to go with what they know. Like there's speculation and like prognosticating what a prospect might do is one thing, but these guys really do like to center on what can I guarantee or what do I really think a prospect can do, and not put some pie in the sky expectations. Again, it's Keegan Murray over Jaden Ivey or Shaden Sharp. You know who Keegan Murray is. You know what the floor is, and you hope you know what the ceiling is. He might push the ceiling, but he's not going to go below the floor that you think you've set. And I'd even say this, his rookie season, that's his floor as a player. 12 points, 5 rebounds, you know, like steals, blocks, assists, everything else. That's the floor, but also a 40% 3-point shooter. So where can he go from there? That, you know, that's going to depend on the work he puts in. It's going to depend on the system. It's going to depend on the players that are around him and whether they're better than him or not. If you go out and get a player that's better than, say, Harrison Barnes in status, then Keegan Murray might not develop quite as fast or become quite as high a scorer as you think he would. But if you don't, and you bring in a couple of defensive minded guys to fill Harrison Barnes' spot, if Harrison's not back, then all of a sudden Keegan Murray becomes a much like higher profile player in your rotation. He's going to get more touches. So I think when it comes to like this group, look at the players they've drafted. Davion Mitchell, again, like 22, 23-year-old 4-year player in college. Keegan Murray was an old sophomore, but 22. I think he's 21 when he's drafted, but turned 22 early. And then Tyrese Halliburton, who was a sophomore coming out of his sophomore season. All of them were very, very good and productive college players. And that's something that I think that this team and this group of executives, they value highly, because worst case scenario, that you're getting like this level of player. You might not get this level of player, but you're also not going to get a player who's out of the league in 2 years. You're not going to get a Yorgos Papagiannis that, doesn't even last a full 2 seasons in the NBA. And, it seems like how long ago Yorgos Papagiannis was drafted by the Kings. I just looked. He's still 25 years old, playing in Greece, and will be in the championship game against Sasha Vezenkov, 25 years old. You can't miss like that. Yeah.
That's amazing. He's 25 years old.
Jeez. I would have never thought that.
No, me neither.
40, but I wouldn't have thought 25.
I wouldn't have thought about him if James hadn't brought him up, to be honest with you. And I don't mean
he was drafted before De'Aaron.
That's
what was he, 18 when he was drafted?
Yeah. Yeah. And hey, he's developed. And, if you look at the trajectory of Sasha Vezenkov, if Papagiannis gets an opportunity in Greece to become like a primary on his team, like Sasha did, like he could bump those stats up to 17 points and 12 rebounds and 2 blocks. Like it's still there. He's still a huge man, he's still mobile. He just didn't fit what the Kings were doing. And he was kind of surly and wasn't easy to get along with.
Papagiannis was one of the only players I remember like that I've since like covering the Kings or covering basketball where I watched him and was like, he looks lost. Like he genuinely doesn't look like he knows what to do when he's out there on the basketball floor. I don't think I've watched a player like that before or since. Like he just looked confused to me.
I remember years ago, I went down to watch a Warriors game, and it was early in the season, and they had just drafted Michael Pietrus, and he was coming out of France, and you're watching him on the court. They were doing warm-ups with him. They're doing sort of the run-through like they do with every player. And I thought to myself, oh my gosh, that guy wouldn't make a high school team. He was so bad. And he turns out to be like a really, really good role player in the NBA, someone who you had to spend a lot of time developing, and they spent the time, they spent the energy, and the payout was huge. But those initial times were like, holy smokes. And then with a guy like Papagiannis, what happened there is, he barely played on his European team because he was so young, and he might have played in U16 or U18 or U19, whatever. And you saw a little bit of him. And then you watched him shoot a bunch of shots, and you watched him rebound when he's doing like 1-on-0 work, right? And you thought, oh man, all of this looks really good. He's great. I think Enes Kanter put up one of the great like 1-on-0 workouts that we've ever seen. Like that video of him working out was like, holy cow, this guy's going to be a superstar. And he moves all the way up to number 2 in the draft, number 3 in the draft. The point though is that like, you need these guys to work out. You need them to run up against players. And, the whole Dave Yeager workout with De'Aaron Fox, it's always drawn so much curiosity. Like if you can't get a player to go up against somebody, then you better be creative about how you assess them. And Yeager had De'Aaron blindfolded and had him run through drills blindfolded to see how he did and to see how he reacted. And they're like, oh, man.
That's kind of crazy.
Dave was watching Instagram basketball trainer videos.
I don't know. Like you got to find out though.
Wiggly sticks that you get in the pool. Like, hey, what are you doing?
Well, remember like the 2010 draft? No, the 2009 draft. Tyreke Evans, right? So Tyreke Evans has this workout of all workouts. It's him, Steph Curry, Brandon Jennings, and I think it was Johnny Flynn. Yeah. I think that was the 4 that came into Sacramento. They like killed each other in workouts. They're going at each other. It's like this great workout. And then you realize that Tyreke Evans was a 6'6" grown man, and everyone else was like 6 foot tall and weighed like 130 pounds. And he just blew everybody away. But the reason I bring him up is in that same draft, Ricky Rubio refused to work out for anyone, right? And so Ricky Rubio was going to be a number 1 or number 2 pick. I think Blake Griffin's the number 1 pick in that draft.
That's right.
Rubio is supposed to go number 2, but he falls all the way to either number 5 or number 6. I'm not sure because Minnesota had pick 5 and 6 back to back. And that's where they spent them on, of course, 2 point guards. And I think they drafted 4 point guards that year, including Ty Lawson and like Nick Calathis. But that 5 and 6 pick, it's just wild because no one had seen Rubio. Like, he wouldn't work out for anyone. And then he comes to Sacramento and, you know, he goes out to dinner and like his mom's cutting his steak when they're out to dinner, and the Kings were just concerned that he was just really, really young and immature. And then he got drafted and he didn't come over. They had to wait for him for a year. It just a whole bunch of crazy in that year. But that's what you're dealing with in the NBA draft process. You're dealing with parents, you're dealing with players who have, you know, they're on their 8th stop in 2 weeks and they're just dog tired and they're going up against the same dude that they went up against before. I always tell, like, Tobias Harris would come in at like 220 and he was working out going one-on-one against Tyler Honeycutt at 165. But they were both small forwards, so you were using them as comps to go against each other. Well, they went against each other like 7 times during the draft process. You know, what do? Tobias Harris outweighed the kid by 60 pounds. So one of them goes like number 19 or 20 in the draft. The other one falls to the 2nd round. God bless his soul. But you know, there's a lot of weird stuff that happens during the draft process.
Can I get two quick follow-ups so they'll be lost? One, I'm happy to hear Yorgos Papagiannis is developed. Like, I wasn't trying to insult him. Like, I'm happy to hear he's developed and he's playing well, and like, good for him. Still look lost on an NBA floor.
Oh yeah.
2, you mentioned the cutting up his steak, and it just sparked the question. If you order like a filet, you're cutting like a piece at a time, right? Like, you're not cutting the whole thing all at once. Are you?
Oh no, I think his mom took the plate and cut it up like into little cubes for him and handed it back to him.
So like that's, but
she wasn't like slicing and feeding him.
To me, no, I got you. But to me, that, not even having his mom do it, just cutting the steak up all at once is a red flag.
That I agree with that too.
The steak should be cut
as you
one piece at a time.
It's not even that his mom's cutting it.
It's not that his mom's doing it.
You're frustrated by the way he cut it. Yeah, it's cooling. You don't want the whole thing cold. Like, that doesn't make any sense.
Like, you don't cut the whole steak at once. You cut a piece and then you eat it, and then you cut another piece and then you eat it.
Hey, and like, look, Ricky Rubio is a very good NBA player for a long time.
Oh, absolutely.
But there's this, you know, even throughout his career, there's a little bit of just him being a little on the soft side. And that's, I think, what the Kings saw. And you're looking at again, this is, if you make the wrong pick at 4, it's millions and millions of dollars that you've wasted. Look at the Thomas Robinson thing. The Kings had to bail on him before the NBA trade deadline in his rookie season. I mean, he literally was just trash as an NBA player. And the guy that went the next pick was Damian Lillard. I mean, you can't make those types of mistakes, and you have to have guys in your gym. And again, Thomas Robinson, for what I know, never worked out for the Kings at all, where Damian Lillard came in and hit like 99 out of 100 shots, and they just couldn't stop gushing. They loved him, and then they didn't take him. And again, there's reasons why they didn't. And you just drafted Jimmer the year before, and you drafted Isaiah Thomas with the last pick, and both of them, you know, you had hopes for still. And he was going to be a point guard. Lillard was a point guard, but just think of how much that changed the franchise trajectory. If you had Damian Lillard and DeMarcus Cousins as young players growing together and in their heyday, and Damian Lillard coming in as a very, very mature, like 4-year player, that was, you know, what, Lehigh? No, that's CJ McCollum.
State.
What's that?
Weber State.
Yeah, Weber State. Yeah. So what you're getting was like a really, really mature, like 22-year-old player coming in that would have been able to step in and play major minutes right away. It's just, you just can't make mistakes like that when you're a team or a franchise like the Kings.
Well, thankfully, those mistakes are over and the Kings championships are on the way. We'll come back. We'll talk more with our 1320 Kings insider, James Ham. When D'Lo and Casey, brought to you by Sky River Casino, returns here on Sacramento Sports Leader, ESPN 1320. Sorry, I thought of the Anthony thing so late.
I'm looking at Tyreek Evans highlights. This guy was a problem.
Tyreek?
Yeah, Tyreek is a bad dude.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
just
so
really...
I think about that. Like Tyreek and Steph, right? That's what you just said. Steph was that draft. Like Steph, I don't know that Steph would have been Steph here. Like, because remember, Steph in the start of his contract was, remember he signed that second deal on a bargain because there were so many concerns about him. Like, he might not even have got that opportunity here.
Yeah, he got the 4-year 48 because he had ankle injuries.
The way this franchise was at the time, he might not even have gotten that opportunity to do that here. And he would have become Steph somewhere else. So I don't think about that one the same way I think about the Dame Lillard one. The Dame Lillard one was just a flat out miss, just a total screw up because Dame could have been Dame here. I don't know if Steph would have been. I still think Steph would have been this guy. I just don't think he would have been it here. They would have. I don't know that they would have done the 448 or whatever.
And the killer about Dame is they all saw it.
Yeah,
they saw it and they said, "Nah, we're not going to pick him."
Yeah.
Well, keep in mind that Kings switched ownership right then, and Tyreek didn't get the 448. He got that deal, but he got it from New Orleans.
Yeah.
And, the Kings did this sign and trade for Gravis Vasquez and like some second round picks or something. It like you bailed on a player that was actually had performed really well. He was you were getting like diminishing returns, and you were, 4 years in, you still had no idea what position he played. You had the kickback from the brothers where, they wanted him at the point guard position. We're like, why would you give up an advantage where you have a 6'6", 230-pound dude that's running over everybody, and you want to go put him at small forward because he matches up better? Like, that doesn't make any sense. So there was a lot of like back and forth, but like all of those drafts, like the Jimmer draft, Kemba Walker, I believe was number 9 right before Jimmer. Brandon Knight was number 8. Number 7 is where the Kings drafted, but it was Bismack Biyombo, and they traded him for was it Jimmer and John Salmons, and the Kings sent out number 7 and Beno Udrih.
The good old days.
Isn't Jimmer doing something like he's killing in the 3-on-3 team? USA?
Oh yeah, he's killing in the 3-on-3.
He's on the Team USA 3-on-3.
Yeah.
Oh, good for him.
Yeah, I think, what is he, 32 probably at this point?
That's a big deal, man. Good for him.
Jimmer
get himself a gold medal.
I'm really surprised he never got another opportunity in the league. I know he probably couldn't start or nothing like that, but the way he can shoot off the bench and score, man, I always feel like there got to be some place for him in the league, but
yeah,
never stick.
A lot of the problems was all of his work is off the dribble. None of it was ever catch and shoot. And so he wasn't comfortable off ball, and that was a problem. In order to have Jimmer really like maximize, you needed him to be the primary, the everything. And then you had to worry whether or not he was good enough, So like the mentality of Jimmer was very specific. And I mean, talk about a great kid. I mean, that dude was awesome. And his wife, Whitney, was here with him, just spectacular people. His parents were in town all the time. We even, because he got drafted in 2011, and then the lockout hit, and I went up and spent time with their family up at Edgewood for the celebrity golf tournament that summer, because they were during the lockout, and it was just kind of like wide open. You could go and hang out with them. So I spent 2 days walking around with them and hanging out, and just good people, easygoing, like really focused. Yeah. And that was also the good old days when Jimmer's brother decided to go crazy on social media and say something about not playing.
Oh, that's happens.
Well, Jimmer came out and apologized the next day and said that will never happen again. Never happen again. Good. So yeah, that's something I miss. I miss the accountability.
Hey, did we talk to him about Alex Len? Was that with James, or were we discussing that with you and I?
I don't think I discussed Alex Len.
Now we'll ask you about Alex Len. I'll let Kenny eat and I'll ask you. We welcome back we welcome everybody back. I'm struggling, man.
We're back.
I muted the mic real quick because I was like, okay, get a good voice clear and let's do this. It's like, man, this is it. This could be the last.
Carry Damon out.
The last edition.
Jordan.
It's the last edition of D'Lo and KC ever. The voices just decided. I've had the voice is Jimmy Butler right now. Jimmy Butler at the end of the
flat out disappeared.
Final. He's just there's that too. I wasn't going that harsh, James. Jeez. Did that game last night go the way you expected?
Absolutely. I'll even tell you this. Like, I haven't done my prize picks in a while, but I was like, you know what? I'm going to do a prize picks for this first game of the finals. They did like a deal with Jokic where it was like, if he scores over 0.5, he's won. So I did a 6 pick. I went under on Jimmy Butler at 26.5. And he scored 13. I went over on Kyle Lowry at like 12.5. Oh no, it was way less than that. It was 7.5. And he ends up scoring like 10. All of them, I hit every single one of a 6 pick except for Michael Porter, who was at 15.5. And all I needed was one basket. And if you go back and watch that fourth quarter, he bricks a corner 3. He attacks the basket, goes all the way up to dunk it, and then bounces it down to Jokic, who gets fouled. Like one time after another, right at the last second, he went up for a layup and got blocked. And I ended up, I won $50, but I would have won $625 if it wasn't for Michael Porter coming up 1.5 points short.
That's tough. That's tough.
It was harsh.
The real question, James, is how many times did you yawn during that game?
Stop it. Will you stop?
I over under on that one.
I thought it was fine. Like it's
it wasn't exciting.
This series is boring, James. And I love hoop. I love Jokic. I love Jimmy Butler. I love Coach Spo, Bam, all these guys. This series has no pizzazz whatsoever. So far.
I don't know,
this
man.
Series, one game into it, overreaction Caraway.
One game. I mean, you look at the Boston series and the pizzazz of that series. Like Miami should be able to do
finals of all time.
Miami, well, it's the same team. One of the teams, the better team, is in the finals, so they should be fine. I mean,
the Nuggets are the best team in basketball. It's not about how good they are. They're just this whole thing is just boring.
Well, I don't know. I enjoyed it. I thought it was good stuff. You should probably do prize picks. And so you're sitting there screaming at the TV like everyone else. Yeah.
I do. Before we get into business with James Ham,
the business of basketball.
The business of basketball.
We were gushing all over that adorable picture of Keegan Murray holding De'Aaron Fox's son. Did you see it? You hadn't seen it?
I didn't see it.
Oh, you've got it. You've got to see it.
Is it on the gram? That's why.
No, it's on. Well, it originated from the gram, yes, but it's on Twitter.
Who clipped it and put it up? I'll go find it.
I don't know.
James, it's virtually impossible to not
Jill has
find
it on her
this
timeline.
point. It's on Jill's, mine. It's pretty much everywhere.
It's just an adorable picture. But when you see it, you'll go, oh, when you see it. But I talked
Rain giving Keegan the look Ryan gave me the first time I held her.
Oh, yeah. I got it. I see it. Yeah, the head tilt. Yeah.
So I saw it yesterday and I mentioned like those are the type of moments that I don't know if endure a team to a fan base is the right word, but it does. Like it's like, oh man, this is a family. Like this is so cool. This team and the connection they have with each other, and they're connected with the city and all this other stuff. And I know it's real easy to say, you know, how close the team is because they won, but is this the closest team that you've been around with the Kings? Were there teams that didn't perform well, but they were really close, got along really well, you know, had a good energy, they just didn't win? Is this the closest team you've been around?
Yeah, I think it is. I think that there for the last couple of years, it's been building towards like a really good culture. And I think a lot of that is that a lot of the young players that you had kind of grew up together and now they are a certain age. But I've talked about this so many times where like almost every player on this team walked into the season like 24, 25, 26. They're all in the same basic like spot in life, right? So a lot of them are having kids or just had kids. Remember, Harrison Barnes had a little girl, I think 2.5 years ago. And then I was surprised. Sabonis's little dude is 14 months old, which just tells you how fast time goes by. I mean, that's crazy that he's already 14 months because he, they had him right after Domas got traded to Sacramento. So I think it's really cool that all of them are in sort of the same spot. And what that does is, and again, I'll say this again, all the assistant coaches, all of them have little kids. The front office, Wes's kids are a little bit older, but Monty has like 3 kids under the age of 5 or 6 now, probably. There's one daycare with 13 kids from the Kings that all go to the same daycare. And what that does is that all of your support staff, your wives, and girlfriends, they all have friends. They all have people who are in similar situations that, if you need an emergency, someone needs to pick your kids up from school, you've got all these people to call. You've got, it's a real family atmosphere. And so, yeah, I think like culturally everyone gets along. Like it feels good. It's a good vibe inside the locker room. They're messing with each other. It's a little different than it used to be. We used to have a lot more time where 6 or 7 guys are in the locker room, together, like just hanging out and yapping back and forth at each other. And so you get a little bit more of the personality. Now it's usually like 1 or 2 guys in the locker room at a time. But overall, I think that this is a very, very good tight knit group, and they're only going to get closer as time goes by, especially when you factor in the little kids that are growing up with these guys. Go ahead.
My bad. I was just gonna say, what about the scores?
No, the scores. I mean, because you had some big personalities on that kind of pulled guys together, and there was like a fun hoop world that was going on there. But like, let's not act like there weren't guys in that locker room that didn't get along or that had personal issues off the court or had issues between their dads or any of that stuff. Like there were some things that were going on with that group where it kind of kept them from being as good as they probably, they were way better than they should have been. I guess that would be the first thing.
Kenny's blocked out the Marvin Bagley era, apparently.
Well, and I'll also tell you this, like the scores, it's such a great story, but let's not forget that Iman Shumpert was traded at the trade deadline and that and it was time. Like things were good and then they maybe weren't as good. And then he doesn't go on to go play for, 3 or 4 more years and become a big player on some other team. That was pretty much his last hurrah. He went to, where did he go in that trade?
Houston. Yeah. It was Houston. He was, because they played Houston the day he was traded.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah. He was, I think we were watching to see what bench he was going to sit on. And I don't remember which one it was.
Yeah.
Wait. I think there was a 3-team. Maybe he was traded to Cleveland.
Well, Cleveland is where George Hill went that year. Oh. And that's where Iman came from.
Because Alec.
Yeah, he came from Cleveland. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, no. Yeah. So it was a year before they traded George Hill to Cleveland. They got Iman Shumpert back, who had 1 more year left at like 15 or 11 million bucks or something. And then at the trade deadline, they did deal him. They dealt him away. And like, from my point of view, like I thought it was a good vibe. It was fun. A lot of the players were really, really young. So what they had was like a ringleader as opposed to like what we see now where a bunch of guys are like the same age. So like
a ringleader, and Shump was the ringleader.
Yeah. Shump was like the big dominant voice in the locker room. Yeah. And a big dominant voice that would do like incredible Eddie Murphy laughs and stuff. And and none of the players had any idea what he was doing. They had no idea who Eddie Murphy was because they were all so young. So he would do these voices, or he would do the Coming to America stuff. and all of us are laughing in the media, and they're like, and Buddy would come over to like, do you know what he's doing there? He's like, I have no idea.
I wouldn't get along with none of them dudes, man. I love Eddie Murphy. I wouldn't get along with none of them dudes.
Yeah.
Keegan Holden Rain is an all-timer.
Oh, that's a hell of a picture. Right? Shout out to Rasay for capturing that picture and sending it to the internet, because that is just and just the perfect look from Rain.
Yeah.
Like I'll find the picture of me and Ryan, and you see like that must just be the baby look when inexperienced men hold them. Like, yo, get me away from this idiot right here. This dude about to drop me, Mom. Will you please get me back from him?
It's very possible he's just
get me back from a barf on his jacket.
He's just copying the straight face of Keegan. He's just like, yeah. I got to meet Baby Rain near the end of the season, so beautiful little dude.
Yeah. Here's this is the look I got.
Oh yeah,
that's the look I got. Get
like,
this away from me. I think that's right when she made that. Oh no, that's when she made the noise that scared me. I was like, "Hey, Jazz, look at this, Jazz."
You know what stands out right away? What stands out right away?
Broken.
What stands out right away is D'Lo is that dude who plays shortstop on the softball field wearing all white, and you're just like, bro. I know if I hit the ball 3 feet to your left or 3 feet to your right, there ain't no way you're going to get down to go get it. You ain't going down to go get the ball. So I'm just going to hit right around you while you stand there and look pretty at shortstop.
Hit the Carl Lewis. Uh-oh.
You got that all white. Like, bro, don't wear all white to go see a baby. Come on.
It was at this point we both knew we were in trouble.
That's right. Next time you wear the green flannel, because that will hide that stuff, man. You even got like big pockets there. Baby throws up in your pocket. It's okay. It's in the pocket. I still look good.
That's fine. Only a 10-hour day live at Sky River Casino ahead.
That's right. That's right.
The same look, Baby Rain. Same look.
It's just the universal. It's the universal. This dude does not know what he's doing. Look from babies.
That's right. That's right.
Baby.
Man. Kenny,
I love babies. Bring the babies. I'll hold the babies. I don't care. I love the babies.
Kenny brought up earlier this week something we hadn't really thought about before. I don't think we've discussed this with you, a Do you see a realistic scenario where Alex Len is back with this team?
I don't. And that's not because I think Alex is a horrible player. Number one, he doesn't fit the system. Number two, at some point, you have to actually give Neemias Queta a shot. And like, if you're going to go with a big boy to back up Sabonis, that's why I've kind of pushed the idea of, I like Trey Lyles. I like Trey Lyles as a small ball 5. I like Neemias Queta as a third center with the potential to be more down the road. He's a kid that you draft, you put some time and energy into, and then next thing you know, he comes in second in the MVP balloting. He's all G League, first team defense, all G League first team, as sort of like all NBA stuff. Like, he really does. He's taken steps that you expect. Like, if you're going to draft a guy, you're going to put time and energy into him, you're going to hope he develops. He's done it. He's checked all the boxes, right? So at some point, you're going to have to give him an opportunity. And so, like, why? I'm just not sure with Alex. I think Alex could very well go back to Europe. I think there's possible he ends up on a roster as again, a third center. And he was a pro the whole year. He went through a lot the whole year with the Ukrainian stuff. His dad was missing for some time. He was weeks and weeks without knowing literally where his father was, whether he had had to evacuate and move to Russia or all kinds of crazy stuff. So I would check in on him all the time in the locker room just to make sure he knew that we weren't just going to ignore him and act like he wasn't there. But he had moments where he was okay on the court. And could he help somebody? Yeah, I think so. I just think that it kind of ran its course. You know, I don't think that there's a reason to bring him back, in my opinion.
I only brought it up because I just wondered if maybe, because some of the things that you would say when you would talk to him, I don't want to take for granted that, you know, he wasn't playing. I'm sure he wanted to play every night, you know, but it seemed like he was accepting of his role. He was okay with it. And I remember you saying all the time, he's just like thankful that he's in the league, that, you know, that he's a part of something, that, you know, he's a part of a team like this. And then you got to the end of the season where he was actually playing, and then he was like playing well. He was contributing. He played in the playoffs, you know, played some minutes. And I just wondered if maybe he could come back maybe in the same exact role, like a guy that probably will go 15 to 16 games straight without playing, maybe play 1 or 2 games, then back to not playing for, you know, 10 days, 10 games. And if you have the right matchup, if you're in a bit of a pinch, he can come in there and give you some minutes and be accepting of that. So that's kind of where it came from. And I would figure that type of person would be relatively cheap. I agree. You want to see what you have with Keita, but I always look at Keita as probably being the backup center in that situation.
Yeah, I mean, you might be right. Like there could be a spot for him, but I think that the one thing that we always do anytime we discuss like the backup center position, number one, we don't even bring up Chimezie Metu. And number two, we completely omit Richaun Holmes. You got 2 years of $25 million left of Richaun Holmes. Like
James, he didn't play this year.
Well, I totally agree, but maybe there's a way that he spends a summer working in Sacramento and working his way into the good graces of Mike Brown and finds a way to be impactful and help a team.
Well, I mean, I love that. I mean, wouldn't that be the best? Yeah. Wouldn't that be the best scenario for everyone involved?
And you know, the crazy thing about it is, I know there was the time late in the season where he didn't look good at all.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the only other time I remember him playing was that Lakers game.
Yeah.
Where he was able to perform, he was able to do something. So, yeah, James, I mean, maybe they all sit down and come together and be like, last year was crazy.
Throw it away.
How do we make this work? And maybe.
Yeah, there was a point early in the season when he played like a handful of games in a row. I remember him going up against Weissman and in one of the Golden State games in the first like 2 weeks of the season. And so they did give him an opportunity. It just didn't work out, and it wasn't going to work out, and the style of play wasn't going to work out. And then every time he came in the last half of the season, he shot and hit 3-point shots. And you're just like, man, and man, there is not a more strange. Well, the Kings like own the market on the strangest 3-point shots in the league, and that's Matthew Dellavedova, which I don't even know what that was. It hurt me to watch. And then Richaun Holmes does this weird thing where his hands like behind the ball and underneath the ball, and he kind of cups it weird, and then he throws a full like knuckleball at the rim, and it goes in, and you're like, okay, well, you've done that a whole bunch of times. Like, it doesn't matter. I'm not going to mess with it because you at least know how to hit it. Yeah, but it was sad to see him like be a shell of the player that he was before. And I don't understand why they couldn't have found a way to work him out, especially when that's one of the types of players that you needed on this roster. You needed a Brandon Clark type player. And the fact that he was never able to really like step into that role and provide some energy and spark and, you know, and some, you know, wide open alley-oop dunks. Like, you got Malik Monk running alley-oop layup lines with Chimezie Metu and everyone else on the team, but Richaun Holmes, who's one of the best alley-oop guys in the league, can't figure it out. I was very confused by what happened.
One thing that obviously the scenario is perfect. I love the idea. One concerning aspect to it is, James, it's like you could throw out last year if you want to, but it's been like 2 years now because of what happened with Richaun the year before. It's been 2 years since he's really, really played basketball.
No, I totally agree. And, you know, and in that time,
he's played. I mean, obviously he's practicing and all that, but I mean, like, as part of games and rotations and stuff like that.
Yeah, you know, realistically, the best case scenario, you said, wouldn't that be the best case? The best case scenario is that you find him a place where he can reset his career and start over. And, I don't know if that job is out there, because we talk about Alex Len. Is there a $2.6 million minimum scale spot on a roster for his years of service for Alex Len? Maybe, but that's the problem with Alex. Like, if you're looking at a $4 million contract this last year, it's really not that much. You're not saving that much to bring him back, like $2.6 million, when you can get Keita for way cheaper than that. Or at least a couple $100,000 cheaper than that. And when it comes to Rashawn, like, how do you reset? He's owed $25 million. Like, the only way he's either going to be traded as just cap filler in a trade, or you're going to have to give up something to get rid of his contract, or he's going to go somewhere, or he's going to get bought out in Sacramento or bought out somewhere else, and then have to go reset and find his way back into the league that way. And it's tough, because he's, everything that, while I've been around him, he's a good dude. He's got a good family, as far as parents and brothers and all that stuff. He had the off the court stuff, but I think he just needs a full-fledged reset and like a reboot somewhere else.
The off the court stuff, by the way, that worked out in his favor.
It did. It did.
Which is
in his favor, but like
everyone knows. Yeah, your point was he had to go through it.
Well, yeah, but you also have to know that, like, he's got a 6-year-old, so that experience isn't over, and that's gonna, he shares that child with someone else for the next 12 years until they're 18, but maybe even longer than that, because they're your child. So those situations, they feel like they go away. They don't go away. It's still there.
His kid's off at 18. Like, hey, my contract was for 18 years. I told you I'm about to have one giant bedroom upstairs and a bar downstairs. So y'all keep it moving.
That's right. I'm going to need a bigger bar.
I like that. Make sure you check out all of James's amazing work over at thekingsbeat.com. Become a subscriber over there. Better yet, become a premium subscriber over there. Make sure you head over to the Kings Beat YouTube channel as well.